So the Dallas Mavericks have a generational talent on their roster in Luka Doncic, and they have done pretty well surrounding him with talent his first few years in the league. Last year, they made an attempt to surround him with a second star in Knicks big man Kristaps Porzingis. In that trade, they traded DeAndre Jordan, Wesley Matthews, Dennis Smith Jr., a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick for Trey Burke, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Courtney Lee, and Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, they added several solid guys in this trade alongside the star big. Trey Burke recently re-upped with the franchise on a multi-year deal, and Tim Hardaway Jr. makes for a solid scorer on the wing. But obviously, the main part of this trade was Kristaps, who was coming off of an ACL tear that saw him miss 116 games for the Knicks. They even gave him a max rookie extension before he stepped foot on the court for them, and it was a gamble. During the beginning of last season, he looked rough. He was a step slow in almost every area, and some shots just weren't falling. He looked like he hadn't played basketball in almost 2 years. But we've seen that a million times before. Guys come off of injuries and don't look the same for a while. But once he started warming back up and started getting in his groove, you could really see that the zinger was back. I mean, he's a 7'3" guy who can shoot threes and do some stuff off the dribble. That's a very valuable player to have. He even seemed to have bulked up during his hiatus from basketball, and that would be something very valuable for him as well as the Mavericks, hopefully resulting in a healthier Porzingis. But despite the ACL tear, why can't a 7'3" shooting monster be a second star for somebody? Luka generates lots of open looks on the perimeter for him as well as easy looks at the basket. He doesn't have to carry the load like he did in New York. And he's so tall that he's a block magnet, even if he is a little thin-framed. So what's the issue? I mean, after all, Luka and Porzingis were 28 and 19 together in the 2019-2020 season. That's on pace to be a really solid team in the West. And last year in the playoffs, you could argue that with Porzingis, the Mavericks would have beaten the Clippers and advanced to the second round. But that's just the thing. If they would have had Porzingis. Porzingis has never played 75 games in his career. The most he's played is 72 in his rookie season. The season after that, he played 66. And in the season that he tore his ACL, he played 48. He also missed 10 games in the shortened 2020 season, as well as the 2020 playoffs due to a torn meniscus. He's had lower body injury after lower body injury, and it's very common with 7-footers with a thin frame to experience these problems. Even now, at the beginning of the 2021 season, he's still out with a knee injury, and the Mavericks have looked really rough without him. It doesn't help that Luka looks off for some reason. Without Porzingis, the second option becomes Tim Hardaway Jr., really. And behind that, you've got Trey Burke and Josh Richardson. Those are solid NBA players, but in the brutal West, you aren't given any time to have a slow start. There's also not really even a timetable for him to return. The best guess the medical staff has is a few weeks. Hopefully he can return sometime in January, but as I said, in the West you don't have time for slow starts. You don't have time to wait until Porzingis is healthy for you to start winning consistently. You can't have your second best player be Tim Hardaway Jr. or Josh Richardson for 20 games every year, or even worse, in the playoffs. That's not somebody you can rely on to be your second guy for a generational talent like Luka. You want to take advantage of his time on his rookie contract as much as possible. And unfortunately for them, I'm just not sure leaning on Porzingis is making good use of that time. So what can the Mavericks do? How can they take advantage of Luka's rookie contract? I mean, you've only got next offseason before he gets a Supermax rookie extension. They have plenty of movable contracts, just not really any picks to move around. They won't really have a lot of salary available next offseason either, unless Richardson opts out, and they move Kleber and Powell. That would give them about $48 million in cap space, but even if they don't move Kleber, that will give them around $39 million in cap space. There are several restricted free agents they can target, such as Lonzo Ball or John Collins, although they'd likely have to overpay for both. There's also been the Oladipo talk, even if he does pose a question mark. But maybe they can lure Kyle Lowry away from Toronto with a huge 2-year deal. Maybe they can draw Dinwiddie away from Brooklyn if he declines his player option. Maybe Dennis Schroeder if he doesn't come to an extension agreement with the Lakers. None of these guys except maybe John Collins and Kyle Lowry are stars, but there are also still several solid players they could grab with an exception or leftover cap space. I believe that if you surround Luka with at least one other very good player and just fill out the roster with solid talent, that he can make you a contender. So the Mavericks need to find someone else to pair with Luka and just pray that Porzingis is healthy, because Luka will eventually be the highest paid player in NBA history, and they need to capitalize on his talents before that happens. They need to build the team as if Porzingis will not be there. That will help them in the event that he does get injured in the playoffs or for an extended amount of time during the season. I just think that's the best way that they can move, and I think that's just how they should build around Luka for now. But if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you didn't like it, leave a dislike. And y'all, have a good one.